Hello, my dear. Evelyn here. You want to know when the crack in a mother's heart first begins? It isn't always a dramatic betrayal. Sometimes it's just a message. A short, sharp text that slices deeper than any knife. Don't expect us for Christmas. We're going to my wife's parents. They're important. That's what my son wrote. Not a phone call. Not a warm conversation over tea. Just that. No punctuation. No apology. No thought. And I remember standing in my kitchen, flour still dusting my hands from the cinnamon rolls I had been prepping for the freezer. The house smelled of nutmeg, vanilla, and effort. Effort I had poured into making the holidays special. I had even unpacked the old wooden sleigh centerpiece Caden made in second grade. A little crooked, missing one runner, but still something I kept. And then that message lit up my phone. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, my hands frozen midair, as if by not blinking, I could unsee it, as if by sheer will, I could rewrite his words into something softer. But they stayed there, solid, sharp, final. They're important, not also important, not we've already made plans, just they're important. The unspoken part being, I'm not. And isn't that the part that hurts the most? I sank into the old kitchen chair, my chair, the one I've sat in every Christmas Eve since 1984, and stared out the window at the bare branches swaying in the wind. I could hear the heater kick on with its familiar grumble, the sound of comfort, of stability, of home. A home I built, a home I paid for more than once, a home I had opened to them over and over again, and now I wasn't even worth a call. My mind flickered back to the past, those endless nights when I would stay up baking sugar cookies shaped like stars and angels, knowing they'd be devoured in minutes by Caden and his cousins. I used to tie little red ribbons around each stocking, hand-sewn and personalized. Even Iris had one. I stitched hers by hand the first Christmas she came into our lives. I embroidered it in silver thread. Family is a gift. Well, maybe that's the trouble with gifts. People forget they cost something. I sat there as the cinnamon rolls cooled, as the dusk fell, as the silence settled. No one called. No one knocked. Just that message, like a ghost haunting the air. It wasn't about Christmas, not really. It was about place, position, value. I had slipped out of orbit in my own son's life, and the worst part, it didn't even seem to register with him. I picked up the phone once, typed, "I understand. Enjoy your time with her family," but I didn't send it. Why should I always be the one understanding? Why should I always be the one stepping back, smiling through the ache? I turned off the oven, covered the rolls in foil. I didn't cry. I'm too old to spill tears for people who've already made up their minds. But I did open the hall closet. I pulled out the box I hadn't touched since George died, the one labeled Evelyn, if ever needed. It was time to look at what I had been saving all these years. And oh, darling, it was more than just recipes and photo albums. It was the beginning of something I never thought I'd need. Proof. Proof that I was more than what they had decided I was. I'll tell you what I found next, but not yet. Not just yet. Shall I continue, love? I opened that box like I was opening a wound. It had been sitting untouched in the hall closet for over 6 years, tucked behind George's old overcoats and a broken vacuum we never replaced. I had labeled it, if ever needed, with a thick black Sharpie, and then never dared to need it. But that night, after the message from Caden, something in me said enough. Inside the box were files, not sentimental trinkets, not old photos. Files, receipts, printouts, contracts, notarized documents I had once collected because something inside me had whispered that the giving I was doing was turning into something else. Not love, not generosity, something more dangerous, dependency, entitlement. And I had fed it. God help me, I had fed it. There was a folder titled Boutique 2017. I slid it out, my fingers trembling just a little. Inside was the co-signature agreement for Iris's first boutique expansion. The one she begged for after Christmas dinner that year, when she cornered me in the kitchen with a cup of eggnog and tears that didn't quite make it to her cheeks. Lenore, it's not just a store, it's my legacy. A place where women can feel beautiful. All I need is a partner, just your name. It's not even about the money. But it was about the money. I had co-signed a $70,000 loan. I had covered the balloon payment a year later when the boutique's profits dipped. I had even offered to delay my own travel plans so she could attend a design conference in LA. And not once did she say thank you. There was another folder, thicker, labeled School Fees, Emerson, my grandson. I adored that boy, still do, even now. But those tuition fees for his private academy? Every year, the school sent the invoice to me. Not Caden, not Iris, me. And I paid them, silently, without question. Because that's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice, we smooth the path, we disappear into our giving. Until one day, we're no longer invited to Christmas. I sat at my dining table, alone, and flipped through the years of documentation. Thousands and thousands of dollars. All from a modest retirement account I had once imagined using to buy a little lakeside cabin. George and I used to dream about that. A place with creaky floors and a screened-in porch where we could drink coffee and listen to the birds. He's been gone for 11 years now. And the cabin fund? Well, it bought inventory for Iris's boutique. It paid for orthodontics and birthday trips to Disneyland. It bought silence and comfort for a family that now saw me as inconvenient. But I hadn't forgotten the details. I'm an accountant by trade, retired now, but numbers never stop being friends. And I had saved every line item. I even had the contract from 2017, the one that, buried in the fine print, gave me 51% ownership of the boutique. Iris had been desperate that year, rent overdue, supplier threatening legal action. She signed the paper without reading it properly, rushing through the pages, muttering about trust and family. It was legal, it was binding, and it had been gathering dust in a folder marked contingency. Funny, isn't it? They never thought I had it in me, to protect myself, to keep track, to hold on. But I did. That night, I poured myself a glass of red wine, sat beneath the soft light of the dining room chandelier, and laid it all out. Every document, every transaction, every forgotten favor and financial rescue. My past in paper form. They had taken so much from me, but they had also given me something, hadn't they? They had given me clarity. And clarity is a gift no one wants you to have. Because once you see things clearly, you stop saying yes. You stop staying quiet. You stop shrinking. The next morning, I dressed carefully. A warm sweater, slacks that didn't wrinkle, shoes with a quiet heel. And I went downtown to my lawyer's office. I hadn't seen Bryce in years. He had once helped me settle George's estate. Kind man, kind eyes, still called me Mrs. Holstead, like I was royalty. When I showed him the boutique contract, his eyebrows lifted. They have no idea you own this, do they? I shook my head. Do you want to keep it quiet? He asked gently. Or do you want to use it? I looked at him, really looked at him, and I said, I want to be seen. He smiled then and began drafting the letter. It was time they remembered who held the ledger. Shall I keep going, dear? Just say plus, and I'll tell you what happened when that letter arrived at their door. Plus. The letter was delivered by certified mail. I know because I watched the tracking page like a hawk. Iris signed for it at 11:42 a.m. on a Thursday. One of those still too bright days when the sun fools you into thinking the air isn't cold. I imagined her in that high-end boutique, the one with the pale blush wallpaper and eucalyptus candles burning near the register, probably wearing one of those sculpted blazers she liked, heels clicking across polished tile. I imagined the little bell on the glass door jingling as the mail carrier walked in, her perfect smile as she reached for the envelope, still thinking it was a thank you note, maybe a seasonal invoice, and then that smile faltering. Because the name on the sender line was mine. Lenore H. Holstead. My name. It had been years since I'd written it on anything that mattered. Years since it had held any weight in that family. But not today. Inside the envelope was a copy of the 2017 contract, the notarized version, along with a brief cover letter from Bryce, my lawyer. As of this date, Ms. Lenore Holstead is exercising her legal ownership rights to 51% of the Gilded Fern, LLC. All relevant documentation enclosed. Please direct all business-related decisions and communications to Ms. Holstead or her legal representative. No threats, no demands, just truth. That's all I wanted. For the record to be corrected, I didn't expect a response. Not immediately. But it came that evening. Caden showed up at my house just before dusk. I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I peeked through the curtains and there he was, pacing in my front yard like a man trying to rehearse something important. His hair was mussed. He always did that when he was anxious. And he was wearing the same hoodie he'd worn in college. That detail hit me hard. My boy, dressed like a child again, as if hoping to rewind something that had already passed. I opened the door. Hi, Mom. Just that. No hug, no preamble. I stepped aside. Come in, Caden. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped so tightly I could see the veins rising from his knuckles. She showed me the letter, he said quietly. I nodded. She's upset. I imagine she is. He looked at me then, really looked. Is it true? You actually own? 51%. I said, folding my hands in my lap. Since 2017, I bailed her out when no one else would. She signed that contract herself. She didn't know what she was signing. No, I interrupted gently. She didn't read what she was signing. That's different. He blinked. I saw the words hit him like a slap, and still, that flicker of something deeper crossed his face. Not anger, not betrayal. Guilt. That heavy, weary look of a man realizing how much of his comfort has been built on someone else's exhaustion. Why now? He asked. Why bring this up now? I tilted my head. Because you told me they were important. He opened his mouth, closed it. I never said you weren't. No, I said quietly. You didn't have to. The silence between us stretched like glass, and then it shattered. I thought you were okay, he said, voice rising. I thought everything was fine. You never said anything. Because I wanted to protect you, I said. I thought if I kept giving, kept helping, it would bring us closer. But it didn't, Caden. It just made me invisible. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, rubbing his forehead like he could scrub the truth out. She's scared, he said, almost in a whisper. Iris. She said you're trying to take it all away. I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm just claiming what was already mine. I'm not shutting down the boutique. I'm not demanding money. I need to be seen, and I need to stop being used. He was quiet for a long time. Then, with a strangled kind of voice, he asked, Are you going to tell the kids? That broke my heart in a new way. You think this is about shame? I said. No, Caden. I'm not trying to humiliate her, or you. I'm trying to remind myself that I exist, that I matter beyond what I pay for, beyond what I enable. He looked up at me then, eyes shining. You do matter, Mom. You do. Then show me. The front door creaked slightly in the breeze. The wind was picking up. Somewhere outside, leaves skittered across the pavement like scattered thoughts. He stood. I need to talk to her, he said. I need to figure this out. I hope you do. He turned, reached for the door, hesitated. Mom? Yes? I'm sorry. That word. So small. So late. But not nothing. After he left, I stood in the quiet of my living room, still holding the tea I had brewed before he arrived. It was cold now, but I drank it anyway. Bitter. Comforting. I went to the drawer in my office, pulled out the rest of the documents, all of them. The tuition receipts, the wire transfers, the boutique invoices with my signature at the bottom. I stacked them neatly. Then I took out a blank envelope and began to write a second letter. This one wouldn't be from Bryce. It would be from me, because the truth was still too quiet. And sometimes, even at my age, a woman needs to learn how to raise her voice. I wrote the letter by hand, not because I had to, but because I wanted them to feel every stroke of my pen. There's something about a handwritten letter that lingers longer than an email. It's personal, intentional, intimate in a way that a typed document could never be. I used the good stationery, the cream paper with the gold trim I'd been saving for years. I'd always thought I'd use it for something important. An announcement, a thank you, a goodbye. Maybe this letter was all three. I began simply, Iris, I'm not angry. I'm awake. And I meant that. I wasn't writing from rage. That had passed. What filled me now was something colder, clearer. Not revenge, just resolution. You've mistaken my silence for consent, my generosity for obligation, my love for your lifestyle as proof of your worth. But here's the truth. I funded your boutique not because I believed in your dream, but because I believed in you. I paid Emerson's school tuition, not because I thought private school mattered, but because I thought he mattered. I paid for the braces, the Bali retreat, the silk blouses, and scented candles, not because I had to, but because I trusted that eventually, you'd remember who made it possible. You never did. I paused. The air was still in the room, like even the house was listening. This isn't a threat. I won't be suing you. I won't be dismantling the boutique. I won't be telling your friends about the time you asked me to co-sign a second loan so you could install marble floors in the back showroom. No, I'm just stepping forward into the space I earned. I own 51% of the Gilded Fern. That's not a secret anymore. And I will be attending the next staff meeting. I could almost hear her voice as I wrote that line. She can't mean it. She's bluffing. She won't dare. Oh, but I would. I finished the letter. I won't apologize for remembering my worth. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to accept it. But from now on, you will respect it. And if not, we'll let the lawyers do the talking. Sincerely, Lenore H. Holstead. I folded it neatly, slid it into the envelope, sealed it with a single piece of tape. No wax, no flourish, just clean, firm intention. And I dropped it in the mail the next morning. I didn't text Caden to warn him. I didn't send a copy to Bryce. This was mine. A woman's voice, long buried under duty and deference, finally rising to the surface. 3 days passed. Silence. The boutique's Instagram page, once a constant churn of curated flat lays and faux inspirational captions, went quiet. The posts stopped. The stories vanished. On the 4th day, the phone rang. I recognized the number. Iris. I let it go to voicemail, but she didn't leave a message. Instead, she showed up at my door. That night, it was dark already. December dark, the kind that feels like the sky is closing in. I opened the door, and there she was. Designer coat, lipstick too red for an apology. Her heels sunk into the wet grass of my walkway like roots growing in the wrong place. She held no gift, no flowers, not even a fake smile. Just fury, dressed as poise. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice smooth. I stepped aside. She walked in like she owned the place. Of course she did. She was used to walking into spaces she hadn't paid for. We sat at the dining table, same table where I'd once taught her how to shape pie crust, same place where she'd once called me formidable before she knew what the word meant. She folded her hands. "You blindsided me," she said. "No," I replied. "I reminded you." There was a beat of silence. "You're serious?" she said slowly. "About being involved." "I've been involved for 7 years," I said. "I just stopped hiding it." Her jaw clenched. "Caden is confused. Caden is exhausted," I said. "He's tired of living in a lie built on my silence." She leaned back in her chair, scanning me. "You don't know how the boutique works," she said, her voice slipping into that silky condescension that had always sat beneath her words. "You're from another generation. The brand is built on aesthetic, on youth. You showing up at meetings will make people uncomfortable. I smiled. That same soft smile I wore the night she called me useless. And I said, then maybe it's time they learn to sit with their discomfort. She didn't respond. Because what could she say? That I didn't belong? That I wasn't smart enough? That I wasn't young enough? I was the reason the boutique still existed. Every inch of that store had my fingerprints on it. Every shelf, every ledger, every silent wire transfer. And now I would be present, seen. I stood gently and walked to the small desk by the window. I picked up a folder, thicker now than ever. I placed it on the table between us. These, I said, are copies, receipts, contracts, meeting notes from the last 2 years. She looked at them like they might catch fire. I didn't ask her to take them. I didn't need her to. I'd already made my move. Next Tuesday, I said, I'll be at the boutique. You'll add me to the payroll. We'll discuss the holiday season. And if you prefer not to work with me, we can begin drawing up a buyout offer. You wouldn't? I looked her in the eye, and she saw it. I would. I absolutely would. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what would happen if I said enough. She rose, gave a short, brittle nod, and walked out. Her heels clicked sharply on the tile, but not loudly enough to drown out the sound of a woman reclaiming her space. Would you like to hear what happened at that meeting? Just say plus, love. I'm not done yet. The boutique staff meeting was set for 9:30 a.m. I arrived 15 minutes early. I wore a navy blazer and a scarf George once gave me for our anniversary. Soft blue silk that made me feel grounded. Not flashy. Not trying to be 20 again. Just solid. Present. Unapologetically me. The Gilded Fern sat on the corner of a manicured little plaza, all glass frontage and trailing vines. From the outside, it looked serene. But when I walked in, I felt it. That subtle tightening of the air. Employees glanced up, smiles half fastened to their faces, then darted away. Iris was already there. She stood near the espresso machine, coffee in hand, talking to a junior associate about holiday packaging. She paused when she saw me, her mouth twitching toward a smile and then stopping halfway. Lenore, she said, as if testing the sound of it. Iris. I set my folder on the counter like I belonged there, because I did. She gestured stiffly to the back room, a small conference nook with velvet chairs, and a glossy whiteboard still smudged with half-erased buzzwords. We sat. 6 employees filtered in, all women in their 20s and 30s, all unsure of how to greet me. I didn't blame them. Until now, I'd been a name on invisible wires, the silent sponsor, the soft ghost behind the business, but not today. Iris opened the meeting, tight, over-rehearsed. As many of you know, we're entering Q4 and ramping up for holiday sales. Actually, I said, my voice calm but firm, we're starting today with a structural update. Everyone turned. I placed a printed copy of the ownership agreement on the table. My name is Lenore Holstead. I co-founded this business, though you've never heard me called that. I provided the original capital, co-signed the expansion loan, and as of this morning, I am officially re-entering as managing partner. Murmurs. A few darted glances at Iris. One young woman, Savannah, I think, blinked like she'd been told her reflection was wrong. Iris remained silent. I continued. This won't affect your roles day to day, but it will affect how decisions are made. Marketing budgets, inventory orders, vendor relations. Every major financial move will now come through both of us. That includes payroll and partnerships. No one moved. I let the silence bloom, and then I added gently, I know you're used to a certain rhythm here. I'm not here to disrupt it. I'm here to protect it, because when a business is built on illusion, it cracks, and you all deserve better than that. I looked each of them in the eye. Real, steady, no threat, just truth. After the meeting, I stayed. I walked the floor. I spoke with the staff. I asked about vendors, margins, returns. I wasn't just there to prove a point. I was there to work. And the longer I stayed, the less tense the air became. By noon, Savannah had brought me a coffee, not out of pity, out of curiosity. "You used to be an accountant?" she asked. 32 years, I said, smiling. "And I still balance my checkbook by hand." She laughed. "God, I haven't seen a checkbook in years." "That's why your profit margins are bleeding," I replied and winked. A few chuckles around the room. I wasn't trying to charm them. I was just showing up. That afternoon, Iris asked to speak to me privately. We sat in her office. The lights were too bright, the scent of eucalyptus overwhelming. She sat very straight, her hands folded like pressed linen. "You're not what I expected," she said. "No," I replied. "You expected a ghost with a wallet." She didn't deny it. "I underestimated you." "I know." And then, to my surprise, her voice softened. "I was scared," she said. "When the letter came, I thought you were going to tear it all down." I shook my head. "I didn't come to destroy what we built. I came to claim it." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Will you stay?" It was the closest thing to respect I had ever heard from her. "I'll stay," I said. "But not as a silent partner, not as your safety net. I'm here because I earned it." She nodded. There were no apologies, but there was something else. A shift, a weight redistributed. I left that day not triumphant, not glowing, but steady. And when I returned home, I didn't go straight to my office. I went to the attic. There, in a box labeled Lake Lure, was a folder filled with pictures of the cabin I had once dreamed of owning. That dream was gone now, spent, sacrificed. But in its place, a new one was rising. Not a place, but a state of being. A life where I no longer had to vanish to be loved. A life where I could take up space. That Christmas, I didn't host dinner. I spent the morning at a small cafe with my friend Marjorie. We drank coffee, laughed, exchanged gifts. Then I went home, lit a candle, and painted. Just for me. Caden called that night. "Hi, Mom," he said softly. We missed you today." I smiled. "I know." "Iris said the boutique is different with you there. Stronger." "That's good to hear." A pause. "I want to come see you this weekend. Just me and Emerson, if that's okay." I looked around my quiet house, the tree twinkling in the corner, the scent of rosemary from the small roast I'd made just for myself. "I'd like that," I said. He was quiet. Then, "Thanks, Mom, for everything, for not disappearing." I whispered. "I almost did." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." I hung up and returned to my canvas. Blues and grays, soft strokes building towards something bold. This was my new season, one not built on silence or sacrifice, but on presence. I am a woman who kept the receipts, who found her voice, who showed up. And to any woman reading this, anyone who feels unseen, unthanked, quietly erased, you are not a shadow, you are the light.